The way we solve the uninsured problem in America is to make sure we work on the right problem. And that step one is repeal Obamacare. Replace it with patient-centered, market-driven ideas. They're already out there, such as allow, under the current tax code, the deductibility of health insurance premiums regardless of who buys it. When you do that, employers will be able to provide more options to their employees. Steve Forbes did this back in the early 1990s in order to prove that people spend their money better than other people's money. So we have to fundamentally change the system. Secondly, expand health savings accounts. Don't restrict them the way Obamacare does. Expand it to give people an opportunity to build up a medical emergency fund. Thirdly, pass in every state loser pay laws, because the cost of frivolous lawsuits is one of the big drivers to what's driving up health insurance costs. Fourth, allow insurance products to be sold across state lines. Allow association health plans. There's a whole list of market-driven, patient-centered ideas that would achieve the objective of increasing access by bringing down the costs, not with a big government program like the Obama administration is trying to roll out.
What do you think the next president who's elected will have to do to get this country out of an economical slump?
What do I think the next president has to do to get this economy out of an economic slump? First, recognize that the business sector is the engine of economic growth. None of the policies that have come out of this administration have put fuel in the engine. This is why I have proposed my bold 999 plan. When this campaign first started, I put some more modest proposals on the table. But this economy is now on life support, which is why I have released and proposed my 999 plan, which is the following. Eliminate the current tax code, the mess that we've had since 1913. And then impose a 9% tax on corporate profits, a 9% tax on personal income, minus a few small deductions, and a 9% national sales tax, which is consumption. We implement that plan, it would be revenue neutral. It replaces all the revenue from personal income tax, replaces the revenue from personal income tax, corporate taxes, payroll tax, capital gain tax, and the estate tax. One of the reasons that I believe that the American people have an appetite for a bold plan like that is because we can't spend our way to prosperity. The American people knew this before they spent $1 trillion. Do a plan like that, then provide some certainty to the business community, they would start growing again. Because I'm sure you've heard that they've got cash, but there's too much uncertainty for them to invest it into growing. That's what we need to do to get this economy moving.
What do you want to see this country do about the war in Afghanistan?
What do I want to see this country do about the war in Afghanistan? Number one, stop telling the enemy what you're going to do before you do it. Secondly, at this particular point, I didn't agree with reducing the surge when it had only been in place a year. And now the president wants to start drawing down the troops. And he's telling the enemy what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. That's not how I believe we ought to deal with some of these situations. At this point, I can't tell you what the situation is going to be the day that I take over as President of the United States. Because I happen to believe that the enemy is just sitting back waiting, saying to themselves, instead of having to fight 100,000 troops, let's wait till they get it down to the 6,000 that they told us we're going to have. And then we're going to we're going to increase our efforts. They're not going to stop trying to kill us by a third. So what I'm saying is, what I will do, make sure our mission is clear. It's rather foggy right now. Secondly, clarify whether we can win. I can't give you the answer to that until I get the information from the appropriate generals, intelligence sources, etc. If we cannot win, I want an exit strategy. If we can win, what will it take? How long will it take? Then I want a strategy for victory. But the difference between me and President Obama I'm going to listen to the experts on the ground, not ignore the experts on the ground.
Mr. Speaker, can you talk about how your campaign is going right now? Obviously, when the final month of the third quarter was carried, Mitt Romney raising a lot of money. You had some debt. How close are you to paying down all that debt?
We're very slowly, very gradually paying it down. Look, if money is the number one indicator, Barack Obama will be reelected. No Republican will outrace him. If ideas and solutions are the number one indicator, Barack Obama will be defeated. I am raising money as rapidly as I can in a setting where, frankly, we had to overcome 2 months. This is why I used the USC analogy. We had some fumbles, and we've had, frankly, some hits. The combination of two made it harder. But we are gradually recovering. August was the best month we've had in about 5 months. I think September will be better than August, and I suspect October will be better than September. And I expect by the time we pick our very first delegates, which will be January, that we'll be fully competitive with everybody else in the field.
Mr. Gingrich, several states have been leading the way in trying to curb illegal immigration. Just what is your stance on that?
My stance is the federal government ought to do its job. I mean, rather than have the president and the attorney general attack Arizona, the president and the attorney general should do something real. I mean, the reason I raise this Gibson guitar case is, think about a federal government which is, first of all, weird enough to have armed federal agents involved over Indian endangered wood, which the Gibson guitar people say it's not, and the Indian government says it's not. But just the imagery of a federal bureaucracy run amok. But second, you had 26 spare federal agents. You could use them fighting drugs, you could use them fighting terrorists, you could use them on illegal immigration, you could use them to control the border. I mean, what is the rationale of a system which decides that chasing down guitars in Tennessee is a better use of personnel than stopping illegal immigration at the border?
Mr. Speaker, Governor Romney criticized this issue of in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. What's your view of that? Is that an incentive, an unnecessary incentive?
My view is that it is tragic that we have a situation today where there are people who we know are here illegally. We have no method of reconciling that, and we have no solution for it. And so states are floundering, and different states are going to try to find different solutions. I believe the real answer is to go through a series of steps at the federal level so that everybody in America who's in America is here legally, and if they're not here legally, they're not here. And that requires a level of change beyond anything we've tried to do. And I think it tells you how bad the situation is. You go all the way back to 1986 in Ronald Reagan's diary. He's describing exactly the same problems 25 years ago. And I think it's a terrible failure of leadership in both parties that we haven't solved it.
You mentioned Thursday night. What do you expect to hear the president say, and what do you think he should say?
Well, just based on the way he went to Detroit without learning anything today, my presumption is that it will be a collection of minor ideas surrounded by big rhetoric. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, if the president were to walk in and say, you know, now that we realize how bad the economy is, and now that we're looking at years of unemployment, I've decided that class warfare and bureaucratic socialism don't work, so I'd like the following 6 big changes. I'd feel more secure if he tells us which Republicans he's been consulting. He says it's going to be a bipartisan speech. And who has he talked to? I don't find anybody who thinks that the president's reached out to him. We have, if you go to Newt.org, you'll see an entire package of things. I'll close with this, but I want you to understand the scale of this. Ronald Reagan launched a 4-part program. Make people feel good about creating jobs, the opposite of class warfare. Cut taxes dramatically designed for job creation. Deregulate designed for job creation. Focus on American energy. In the recovery from the Carter disaster, if you lay it over the current size of our population, it would represent 25 million jobs over 7 years. That's how big it was. If you take the highest unemployment rate under Reagan and the highest unemployment rate under Obama, the report last Friday under Reagan would have had 3,700,000 more Americans at work. That's why he got reelected carrying 49 states. The recovery was so, and every month we're going to release from Newt.org where Reagan would have been in job creation compared to Obama. And the gap's going to get wider because it was accelerating. He'd already dropped from 10.8% down to 6.5 by this stage. But he wasn't running around whining. He wasn't running around complaining about Carter. He wasn't running around trying to find somebody to blame. He had a clear, vivid belief in the American people. He had a clear, vivid belief in small business and entrepreneurs and investors. And he had a clear belief that if you encouraged them, they would go out and create jobs. And he launched what was a very long period of productivity and prosperity.
Yeah.
That's what we need.